Raider Zone Weekly with Vince Calautti, Ryan Smith, Steve Kandray, and Billy Hassinger. That's right. This is Raider Zone Weekly. I'm Billy Hassinger, Vince Calautti, Ryan Smith, and Steve Kandray moving positions here tonight, having to sit next to me.
This is like the old school, like really small rooms you see, like, kind of like with Colin Cowherd or those guys when they have guest speakers are literally right next to him. Also, Ryan using his phone tonight instead of using a regular paper, pulling it up on his account. Technology has come a long way.
But quite frankly, Steve, all I have to say is, if I smack you, it's not my fault. Our first topic of the night, Kobe Bryant passes Shaquille O'Neal for fifth place on the all-time scoring list, and they made a comparison with him and some of the greatest Lakers of all time. What are you guys' thoughts on, is he the greatest Laker in history?
I don't think so, because when you're talking about it, you're looking at the here and now. You're going to have to wait a few years before you decide if he's the greatest Laker or not. You're going up against Kareem, Magic, Worthy, the logo himself, Jerry West, some great Laker people. While he's in that conversation, I don't believe he right now is not the greatest. He's greatest ever. You have to put, I believe, Kareem and Magic above him just for the amount of what they did during that time. He didn't really revolutionize anything. He wasn't one of those guys who made anybody better around him. So I really think you got to put him in probably the number 3 slot.
Magic Johnson had more NBA MVP awards, and he had the same amount of titles. They both had 5. He had a little bit better stats in rebounding and passing, but Kobe has, I think, him by like 4 points on average right now for scoring. But we'll see if that declines as his career goes on. But I think right now you have to put Magic a little bit above him just from the impact. He did have perhaps a little bit better players with him when he played, so it is kind of an interesting debate. But Vince, I agree with you. I think we're probably going to have to wait and then see after his career what impact he really made on the organization and have a little bit better analysis.
Yeah, guys, I think we're going to start the show well. I think I'm going to agree with both of you because, for the most part, Kobe Bryant is an amazing player, and he's had consistent years every year he's been in the league. Oh, okay. See, setting a little more. But he's done a great job, like, in all, 16 years. And I think that, he's still below Magic a little bit. He's not quite the assist man or the rebounder that Kareem. He's not the assist man that Magic was or the rebounder that Kareem was. But he's a definite scorer. And I think if he gets one more MVP or another title under his belt as a Laker, and he ends his career with the Lakers, I think that, he could be up there surpassing both of them, potentially.
As they did a comparison this week, as I'm messing with our sound effect because it's not one to cooperate with us tonight. It's one to play on its own.
It happens. I think once a month it just gets angry because it did the same thing to Jesse before he left as well.
It does.
I think it's just mad at Steve for moving to the other side.
It might be.
See, Steve, you're throwing off everything. Steve, just be quiet. Nonetheless, though, this week on SportsCenter, they did a comparison where I believe it was Jalen Rose. He placed his top 5 Lakers of all times. Shaquille O'Neal was number 5. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was 3. Jerry West was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was 4. West was 3, Bryant was 2, and then Magic was number 1. So, you're in good company when you're up there. He only played Shaq low at 5 just for the fact that he didn't play his entire career with the Lakers and he wasn't there as long as Kobe's been. But nonetheless, though, those are 5 great Laker players.
The interesting thing you got to look at, too, is as they talked about that, Colin Cowherd may mention that everybody likes Magic. There's nobody who dislikes Magic Johnson. That might be part of the reason why we pushed him up, because Magic was one of those guys who made everybody happy, not just his players, but people outside of it as well.
Yeah, I think he wasn't as polarizing as Kobe is. We have some people later on in the show. We're going to talk about Forbes' 10 most hated athletes, and I believe that Kobe's on that list. So he's definitely probably. So there's probably I don't want to give it away. We'll see if he's on that list or not. But I think it's interesting. It's either the discussion, since people like Magic so much, are they overinflating him, or does that become part of who he is because he's a better off the court like person? Does that make him a better Laker?
Yeah.
As I'm going to have a hard time with these sound effects.
You should just yell ding and just do your own. Just start cheering.
I might just do that tonight. But nonetheless, our next topic of the night, college basketball. If you didn't see it last night, I feel sorry for you. Crazy finish in Chapel Hill as true freshman Austin Rivers, son of Celtics coach Doc Rivers, hit the game-winning three-pointer as time expired to beat the Tar Heels.
Yeah, Billy, I watched that game live, and it was unbelievable. Me being a Carolina basketball fan, loving their history and story, it was a little bit sad to see, but one thing that you got to compare with that game is the fact that Carolina just didn't make a 3. They made 1 3-point shot all game long, and Austin Rivers hit 6 by himself. I think it was a great showing by the true freshman. He's got a lot of Doc in him, apparently, and he's been coached well. Doc being the great coach that he is. So I think that a lot of that game was Carolina mishaps and a lot of capitalization by the backcourt of Duke.
And I think just adding a little bit of context to this, you have to look at what the situation was in which they came back. 2 minutes left in the game, and Duke's down by 10 points. And they go on, and North Carolina made some mistakes and turned the ball over a few times, and then they come down and win in this dramatic fashion. So I think that's the other amazing thing. It's not as though it kept going back and forth, back and forth. I mean, Duke made a legitimate comeback to hit their shot. And you know what? If you're Austin Rivers, I don't even care how the rest of your career goes as a college basketball player. He's always going to remember beating North Carolina for Duke in that buzzer beater.
He said it was the best play of his life.
Yeah,
at North Carolina too. By the way, it's not in Duke; it's at Chapel Hill at the place. So I imagine Doug is busy ranting and raving up where he's from. For those of you who remember Doug from our show a few years ago, busy ranting and raving probably because he loves North Carolina and. Pretty sure he was very angry at that. So that's my take on it. Very entertaining that Doug is probably in a rage about it right now. But great shot by him to make those. Like you said, 10 points from behind. Great job. Just another great chapter to a rivalry. It just goes to show you, particularly in rivalry games, anything can happen.
And, you look at it just North Carolina basically lost this game. They did not make a field goal in the last 2 minutes and so many seconds of that game. And you knew things were just not going their night when Tyler Zeller tipped in that three-pointer that was an air ball for 2 points for Duke. So it wasn't the Tar Heels' night, and they just, down the stretch, they just did not look like the normal North Carolina team that we're used to seeing from Roy Williams. As hopefully this does not decide to freak out on me again. First, we need the ding.
Yay!
All right,
and it is time.
No,
too late.
No,
Nope.
You jinxed it.
It was going to do it anyway. It is time for our first
Undivided.
As I'm doing my best to keep these things in control here tonight. Our first 5 undivided topic of the night, Super Bowl recap. Great game. To me, terrible halftime show, but that's besides the point. But nonetheless, the Giants coming out on top in another heroic Eli Manning final drive with a spectacular Eli Manning pass.
I am very, very surprised that the Patriots lost this ball game. I think it would have been more interesting if they had won, first of all, because then Tom Brady could sort of parallel Joe Montana in getting the correct amount of Super Bowls with him, and he could sort of follow that storyline. And also for Eli Manning, he would match up exactly with his brother, and then it would sort of make sense because Peyton has gone to a Super Bowl and lost, and he's gone and won. I think it would be interesting if Eli would have gone and then lost, gone and won. But no, that's not the case. Now we have to have this weird discussion about who's better between Eli and Peyton. But getting back to that's a different story altogether. But I think
not even close. But anyways,
yeah. But people will bring it up either way. I mean, it becomes a discussion now that he's won more Super Bowls. But I think the interesting thing about this, I felt so bad. I'll tell you what. In the last minute of that game, I'm at my house and we're watching around, and everybody's like, "Oh, the Giants took the lead," and I go, all right, yeah, for Patriots fans, this is bad, but we could see one of the greatest comebacks of all time right now. And I believed that. I was like, you know what, Tom Brady is going to come down. We're going to see him really solidify his place in history as a great quarterback. He's going to run down this field and just score and win the game. But his receivers let him down. I felt, that's the worst possible way because he made the right throws and his two big drops in that game, and it's a shame.
He took that terrible sack again. It was like a replay for Patriots fans. It's like a replay of what happened in 07. They score late to go down. You only have a few minutes. You have less than a minute to drive down the field, drop some passes, huge pass, drop it. Then all of a sudden, Brady takes an unnecessary sack for no reason. Yeah. Instead of trying to scramble, just takes a sack.
Well, what really characterized it for me is he wouldn't have been in that situation if his receivers wouldn't have dropped the ball. And that's what really, all I think of is those drops. I mean, he just...
There were other things early on he couldn't get going. So you take a look at, if you're looking around at these, this now presents an interesting conundrum with the Bill Belichick and Tom Brady group after this Super Bowl. They won their first 3, they've lost their last 2, but they've only won a handful of playoff games since 07. So this presents an interesting conversation. You could really make a case against them. They're not a lock into the Hall of Fame anymore. It's now he did this early on, he was good, but that's because he had people around him. Maybe this, and this. For those of you who really dislike the Patriots, it could be, after they got done cheating, now they can't win anything. But that's a separate story. Mostly Steeler fans like to say that.
They haven't been successful since
making to
Cameragate or Videogate,
I would
whatever
say
it's called. Spygate. There we go.
I would say I think making it to a Super Bowl is fairly successful afterwards and going nearly undefeated. But anyways, the Patriots, that was just a big letdown for them. And then after the Giants, again, it's just basically what the Giants have been doing this year. It's just one of those things where the Giants, their typical year, start off decent, suck for a little bit, get better, and make the playoffs, barely make the playoffs, get on a run. Interesting fact, the Giants are undefeated in NFC Championship games. You go in, you do that, you get into the Super Bowl, and they were able to play well at the end. And Eli Manning, great fourth quarter quarterback, still not better than Peyton.
Wow, that's a bold statement, but I kind of agree with that. But Nonetheless, I think that Brandon Jacobs hit the nail on the head at the end of the game. Maybe not
Talking
quite
about
as
Giselle?
drastic. No. Well, I mean,
That's a whole different story.
He said that they decapitated the Patriots dynasty. They took the crown away from them. And I think you were talking about that earlier. They were considered the football dynasty of the 2000s. And now the fact that they haven't won a Super Bowl for a while, they haven't won that many playoff games, they were struggling at home in the playoffs. I mean, that's a big issue for them. And I think they have lost a lot of their thunder. They still made it to the Super Bowl. Yeah, that's true. But if they would have won this game, they probably would have been back on top. Now, you look at a lot of aging players, an aging coach who's kind of he's been there for a while, and it's a little bit more of a problem now, so that they're not quite the dynasty they were earlier on in the decade. But I think that Eli Manning did a very good job in the press conference at the parade saying that, we wanted to have a little bit of a challenge. We'd lose a few, win a few, but we wanted to make it there anyway.
It's the Tom Coughlin model of play. Middle of the season, just stink. And then
he's got two, though.
I know, exactly.
I mean, they had to win their last number of games to even get into the playoffs. But moving on to our next topic, at the request of Steve from last week, we're going to talk about the greatest sport in the world, cricket.
Soccer's
Good.
the greatest sport in the world, but
Cricket is in fact the second most popular sport in the world.
Yeah, well, you know what? According to these sheets that I have to help us along with this sport tonight, this is a first on Raiders Zone Weekly. Welcome to the greatest game of all. That's exactly how it starts off.
All right.
Now, first off, what do you three know about cricket at all?
I do know that there is a guy who stands and there's some sticks behind him, and the guy throws the ball at the sticks and he tries to knock them, and the other guy hits it with a wooden paddle, and they have to run. And then you touch, and it's a scoring system somehow like that. If you can just dive, and I know India is one of the top teams. And it was originally an English sport, but India dominates it.
Well, because the English influence in India.
Yeah.
But it's called bowling when they pitch.
That's it.
There's the whole field, which is about 160 yards, and then there's the pitch, which is actually like a rectangle where the pitcher bowls, and then there's the bowler bowls. Sorry, he bowls the ball, and then there's a guy who bats. And then there's another guy at the other set of wickets that when he bats, they have to run and basically trade places, and that's how you score a run. And apparently there's 1 or 2 innings only.
I think there's not a lot of innings, but I feel like if I remember correctly, there's games that have lasted for about 6 or 7 hours.
Because
they can go on for days.
Because they just and there's runs in the hundreds. I mean, I'm assuming they're runs.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just know the fact that whenever you see them, they're usually in India. It's usually high scoring, and the batter, the long wooden paddle is almost like the stick of an oar. It's not exactly a bat kind of shape, and then he just hits it, and everything usually goes on the ground, and it's just a free for all after that.
They're supposed to try and tag him. I don't know what they're supposed to do to get him out. They're supposed to hit the wickets or whatever.
I don't know.
I think sometimes you can actually just chuck the ball at him, and if you hit him,
you can hit him. Yeah.
See, this is why we play baseball in America.
You're supposed to knock the wicket over though, or something.
You're supposed to break it or something.
You're supposed to break the wicket. It's weird.
Well, listen to these structures. This is what they call test cricket. Is a game that spans over 2 innings. Means that one team needs to bowl the other team out twice and score more runs than them to win the match. So it's
2
it's somewhat like baseball.
Okay.
Another key difference between test cricket and other forms of cricket is the length of innings. In test cricket, there is no limit to the innings length, whereas in one-day cricket and 20 cricket, there are a certain amount of overs per inning. So, the overs is the time of For us, we have no idea what we're talking about. Just way to score runs. It's pretty cool. There's a no ball can be declared for many reasons. A wide ball, a bye, a leg bye, which a leg bye is where runs are scored by hitting the batsman, but not the bat, and the ball is not a no ball or wide.
Interesting. So in other words, if I plunk you on the head and it doesn't go wide or anything, I get a point.
I was watching highlights today. It was like Australia versus New Zealand, and they tried to hit the player without hit. You're basically just defending yourself from being hit with the ball. They have all kinds of padding on and stuff. It's weird.
Interesting. We should try this sometime.
I mean, it's a game that I would love to try sometime.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be cool to try it. We should have had Dr. Toma come on here as a special guest and do an interview. Dr. Toma is our sport business teacher who is
he's an international genius, basically.
Yeah, he's been to different international places. He was the head coach in Brunei for their national team in track and field, and he knows all sorts of stuff. So he would be really interesting to have him come on. He'd be a good one to come on for this.
He has turned me on to the best game ever, Sepak Takraw.
Sepak Takraw is an awesome game. We have to talk about that next week. We'll say that.
We'll talk about that.
Can this be a regular thing on the show? Raiders Zone Weekly tries to explain a sport they don't understand.
Sports from around the world. We should call it that.
We could probably work something in like that, but
let's check it out.
I was gonna say, where's my sound effect? It's not working. I hate tonight. Moving on.
Can I just point out that instead of talking about the Steelers' new offensive coordinator Todd Haley, we decided to discuss cricket on the show?
Well, you know what, Steve?
That was your recommendation.
You should not have brought it up last week. You're complaining about us talking about tennis. You say cricket, auto racing, which we will get to later in the show. And so, therefore, it's your fault.
Yeah, you pointed out all those ones that have the same level viewing. You're like, why don't we talk about those? So we said we would.
Yep. So I made it happen. Moving on. College basketball. Well, actually, college sports in general. Memphis is leaving Conference USA to move to the Big East in all sports starting in, I forgot to put the year, it's 2014. Is this a good move for Memphis? And Steve, why are you touching me?
Because I'm sitting near you. I just wanted to give you a pat on the shoulder.
This is an interesting move. Memphis is going from Conference USA, I believe, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is a
if you would listen, I said that.
No, I was too distracted by Steve grabbing your shoulder for no apparent reason.
How do you think I felt?
But anyways, it's supposed to be an equivalent of a team jumping from a small pond to a big pond conference, and I don't think this is it anyways. Big East is trying to call themselves Big America or something and get from everywhere. This is the Big East trying to make sure they keep their BCS bid, and I don't see how Memphis from Conference USA is going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, the Big East is just trying to pull names out of a hat right now. I mean, they've essentially lost all of their power in football. You know, there's still an amazing power in basketball, obviously, but football, you know, the main sport to bring in their funding from, you know, a lot of their alumni and a lot of ticket sales and that kind of stuff. I mean, the Big East is just losing a lot of power, and they've lost their major teams in the Big East Championship, you know, this year between West Virginia, who nobody thought was a really good team until the game they played against Clemson, and I'm pretty sure either Cincinnati or Connecticut. So, I mean, those are three teams that are just kind of, you know, they're a little mediocre in some ways. But, you know, Memphis, I really don't think it's going to help basketball. They were a power when Coach Cal was there, and now they're, you know, they kind of fallen off with a younger coach and a not so great recruiting class. But I think they'll help it in basketball, but not so much in football or other sports.
They really should have tried to coerce Notre Dame into joining as a football school too. I think that would have helped them, obviously, because there's such a good viewership, and obviously there's a huge fan base. But I agree with you guys. I mean, I don't think this is really the direction that they need to go if they really want to legitimize their conference. I think it sort of weakens them as a conference. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm pulling in a couple Conference USA schools, but what value does that really add to the Big East? I mean, right now, I used to have a certain perception of what the Big East was and what their football schools were, and right now I just feel like that in 2014, I'm just sort of confused at what are they demoting themselves into like Conference USA type, or where are they? It's like they're in between. It's strange.
I'm with you on that. It's very confusing.
I just don't know how to feel about them yet.
You know, it's crazy. The Big East is just basically going completely nuts with everything that they're doing. So just have to wait and see how Memphis adjusts to it, as well as San Diego State, Houston, other schools that are just randomly being thrown in there over the next number of years. Our cheers of the week this week. Harvard sports, if you aren't aware of it. Matt Burke, Harvard alum, center for the Baltimore Ravens, won the Walter Payton Award this year for being outstanding on the field and off the field. Jerry Lin, who has all of a sudden come out of nowhere and has been tearing it up for the New York Knicks the last couple of nights, actually showed a comparison of him and LeBron today. His stats over his first two career starts better than LeBron's, and his team's undefeated in his two career starts, as opposed to the Cavs at the time were 0-2 in LeBron's first two career starts. Football team did pretty well this year as well, making it a run into the tournament, and the basketball team ranked. So,
oh yeah.
So quite frankly,
Harvard stepping up.
Harvard, we are giving you our cheers this week.
I like it. It's particularly with Lynn. I want to talk about Lynn for a little bit. This guy got cut from two different teams in a span of 16 days, and I mean he's Harvard's all-time point. I believe one of their top points leaders of all time coming in. He's one of those guys that can create for himself and get around and open. That's what the Knicks need. They've needed somebody that can go and do that, and he's done really well coming in. And I think the getting cut twice and being undrafted has really motivated him and pushed him. He's the first American player of Asian descent to play in the NBA. Kind of interesting. And I think that's really neat for him to come out there and really establish those, particularly in New York. And you can't say, oh, he's got Stoudemire. He's had neither of those two guys with him. Stoudemire's not going to return until Sunday at the latest. Monday because of his brother's death in a car accident. And the only reason Lynn got in was because Melo got hurt. So take a look at that. That's really good for him, and I hope he keeps it up. So props to Harvard, particularly to Lynn.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Jeremy Lin's playing amazing basketball. And, I mean, he's kind of like an Asian Russell Westbrook in a way for the Knicks because, I mean, he's very athletic. He's 6'1".
He's American, sir. He is American.
He's of Asian descent.
Yes, but he's still American.
Okay. Nonetheless.
I'm just messing with
Vince-
you.
Nonetheless.
Vince, just be quiet. Let Ryan make it.
Without me over there to calm them down, they're getting out of control, Billy. This is ridiculous.
Well, if you were on this side, you could probably be in the middle. Well,
I'd be calming you guys down. I'm just saying, maybe this is a bad idea that I'm over here.
But Jeremy Lin's playing great basketball. You know, he dunked last night as a point guard. He's 6'1", very athletic. He can dish the ball very well. He's a decent perimeter shooter. And I mean, talking about Harvard basketball though too, Tommy Amaker has that team playing very well. You know, he's had them playing well the past couple years. Had a tournament run last year, NIT run, one or the other. You know, either way, they made a tournament as a Ivy League school. And I mean, Harvard basketball in general doing very well and having a really good program.
Yeah.
Fine. I just won't talk during this story.
You got
No,
something to say?
it's cool. No, I'm good.
All right, fine. Besides, we're out of time. Maybe.
I was just going to ask if I was going to get to talk during this segment, but apparently not.
Guess not.
Nope.
I'll let
No.
you go first in the next one.
I was
I know.
going to say that I was going to call it a jeer of the week, but all right.
Well, now you know how I felt last semester when you and Vince took up all the time. Nonetheless, moving on to our jeers of the week. The NFL and NBC, at least to me, are making too big of a deal out of this whole MIA situation at the halftime of the Super Bowl, where she made a little bit of a obscene gesture, but you know what? Back in Super Bowl 35 between the Ravens and the Giants, there was a wardrobe malfunction, which I feel is actually more worse than this, but
Well, I don't think
who
anyone.
cares? It's something that we've all seen.
I don't think anyone is making the case that the wardrobe malfunction wasn't as bad as a disaster as this, but I think that they're definitely not overreacting. I mean, the NFL is trying to promote a certain brand of family friendliness, and they've been really under the radar ever since the wardrobe malfunction because everybody knows it's the most watched sporting event in America. I think it's like 96 million is the average. You got families, households, people from all creeds and walks of life. You got young kids watching, and they just want to promote. And NBC, too, they just want to promote this family-friendly atmosphere. And whether or not it was really that big of a deal, it really hurts their brand because when MIA gets up there and flips the bird to 96 million Americans, it does not help your brand as a family-friendly organization.
The interesting thing you got to look at this though too is if you're going to take that, point of view. And I understand the family-friendly
I
organization.
am going to take that point of view.
You've got to also take a look at some of the commercials that were coming out. Some of those things they would have had to clean those up too. The Valentine's night, have a nice Valentine's night commercial. The Italian car commercial. Some of those, the one where it came in ladies and gentlemen sitting in their underwear as they were couches that you could use. Those are not family-friendly oriented. But
see, the difference there, I'm not saying that it was necessarily harmful to anyone. I think that it's coming from the NFL. The reason they're making such a big deal out of it is because the halftime show is produced and very specifically owned by them. Like, people know, it's the NFL halftime show, so people relate that directly to the NFL, where these commercials,
they
don't...
do the commercials, too, in the Super Bowl. It's Super Bowl commercials. You're relating that to the NFL.
They do,
so
but
those
it's
come
not...
in that way.
The NFL has a lot less control, so I feel like they can control this, and they're obviously going to take the money from commercials, but they can control their halftime show. And I feel like it just reflects poorly on them because they made the show. They didn't make the commercials. I guess that's what I think. That's why I think they're overreacting.
I mean, one thing you got to look at, though, MIA did flip the bird, but granted, unless you were very intently paying attention to the halftime show, which I'm pretty sure about 2 people in America probably were, it takes about 3 seconds for them to cut to her, see her dance and sing, flip the bird, and come back. It's a very small snippet. And, I mean, you also have a 55-year-old Madonna in kind of skimpy clothing dancing around. You know, it's not exactly, they want to promote a certain brand. I agree with you there. But, it's the halftime show, and it has a lot to do with the performers. They're told what they can and can't do. But it was a 3-second snippet of a 30-minute halftime show. I mean, it's just something that if you would have turned your head and caught it at the right time, it would have been a big deal, but it shouldn't be.
The other thing that they have, too, is that MIA has had a history of doing stuff like that before. If
Very
you're going
true.
to do that, why the heck are you inviting her on? So
I know,
it's
I agree.
dumb both ways.
Exactly. So either way, I just think they're paying too
I
much
think you're
attention
just
to it.
jeering the halftime show, Billy. Let's be real.
No, it's
here.
not just
yeah,
that.
we
You're
should
jeering the
that should have been the
halftime
jeer. That
show.
was a terrible halftime
just
show.
that alone.
I
It was.
I personally thought it was okay.
Well, Vince, you're outnumbered 3-1, so be quiet.
I'm older than all of
You
you.
thought it was
Count.
good?
I thought it was decent.
Undivided.
CeeLo Green was like a snazzy monk.
He was awesome.
CeeLo Green was like the only good part about that.
Yeah, he
Moving
sang
on
like
to
one line.
Our
Okay.
next 5 undivided topic of the night: Mizzou and Texas A&M making their appearance in the SEC this year. In football, they got their SEC schedule already out. What is it exactly that they can bring to the SEC that the SEC doesn't already have? They won the last 6 national titles in football, which is kind of ridiculous. And what can they do?
Easy fodder for a team.
Well, I'll tell you
It's gonna be one of those. They're gonna be one of those teams. It's you put them on the schedule. They're not at the caliber of SEC teams yet. So you're gonna go in there and they're gonna do that. And they're just gonna be pancaked these first few years. So basically, a team like an Alabama or an Auburn or somebody who's in title contention can just spank them and break the way up.
I'll tell you, I think that it definitely brings a lot more value to Missouri and Texas A&M. I mean, even from a recruitment standpoint, you can tell any recruit, hey, you're going to play in the SEC. I mean, that's a big deal. That clearly after winning the last 6 national titles, and the last national title was 2 SEC teams, I mean, that's unbelievable. How does a recruit possibly turn that down if you tell them something like that? But I think the value that Texas A&M and Missouri bring to the SEC is that they kind of expand the borders. They're both outside of the SEC's normal state area. I mean, Texas, they have they're the only team in Texas now. They're the only SEC team in Texas, and Missouri's a little bit more north. So I think it's just sort of an expansion. They're trying to get the SEC to spread and have more influence over the national scene, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both of you guys. It's a very big recruiting tool for the schools, but as to what they can bring to the SEC, right now, nothing. Like they bring 2 teams that have potential for the future. But Missouri wasn't an awful team last year. They were bowl eligible, but they're not an SEC caliber team. I mean, the SEC had 3 teams in the top 5 for most of the year. So, I mean, they're not going to bring in a lot. And Texas A&M, not a bad football team, but they're not an SEC-style football team. A lot of the teams in the SEC, if not all the teams in the SEC, are very fast, very quick, and very hard-hitting defenses. Texas A&M, I mean, Tannehill threw the ball about 53 times a game last year. So, I mean, it's just a difficult style of offense.
But see, Steve's point of spreading out is probably the best thing that they bring right now.
Now you have people from Texas paying attention to the SEC, and you have people from Missouri. Even if they're not really competing, it's like a Big Ten game.
It's more South Central now than it is Southeast.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's definitely a good thing for expansion for that conference. But I mean, that conference already has so much to offer, and I mean, it's just bringing more to be a power conference to the table.
What they do, and you look at it, the SEC defenses are known for putting out great players each and every year. Normally in the Big 12, you don't have good defenses. You have good defensive players. Like we see it in recent memory. And Ndamukong Suh, the only dominant player really on Nebraska's defense. Gerald McCoy, the big man for Oklahoma. Last year, Vaughn Miller was the big guy for Texas A&M, and Alden Smith was the big guy for Missouri. Other than that, you don't have anybody that you can really name. Well, Nebraska had Prince Amukamara, but really they're known for those wide open offenses that puts up 50, 60 points a game, and then the defenses just are kind of pitiful.
Well, with Nebraska, it's a little different now with Bo Pelini running the show, and now they're in Big Ten. They're going to they've been focusing on defense more than offense.
But quite frankly, though, I just don't think that neither team really should move to the SEC, just for the fact that I think they both get eaten up this year.
Well, I mean,
yeah,
1 year.
I mean, again, I think that they're going to develop their programs. They're going to start playing up to a different level. And again, the recruiting factor. I think that's going to have a huge impact on both those programs. I mean, I really think the recruits are going to make and break your program a lot of the time. And if you can sell that you're going to be playing in the greatest conference in college football in the modern era, then I think that's going to really improve their stock.
Yeah, I mean, before it would be like, we're in the Big 12. Now, with a dying Big 12 conference, if you're going to tell a recruit, a 5-star recruit, and say, we're in the Big 12, and he's like, I'm getting looked at by Auburn, he's going to go to Auburn because they're an SEC school and they're a power. I mean, it's a lot of difference in recruiting, but I think both teams have potential to be bowl eligible based on what division of the SEC they're in. But I think for the next 2 to 3 years possibly, they're probably going to be a little bit of a downtrodden team. They're going to get ran all over a little bit until they get those recruits that we're talking about for the SEC.
That's going to be a big thing. And now, with Texas A&M being in the SEC, it has 2 of the big 3 states in the SEC with the team. Florida, Cal, and Texas all being the 3 states that normally put out the best talent. So you got Texas and Florida now, both in the SEC. We'll just have to wait and see how things play out. Hopefully, the SEC doesn't win number 7 in a row this next year.
Can't happen.
We can't do it.
No.
Ohio,
I know, it can't happen.
It's not going to happen this
Nonetheless.
next year.
Ohio.
2013, though,
Yeah.
possibly.
Urban.
Moving on, another topic that Steve was so wanting to talk about last week, auto racing. As out at Kansas Motor Speedway, they are putting a casino above Turn 2. And when I first saw this, I was thinking, why would you put a casino at the racetrack when no one's going to be wanting to go to the casino when everyone's going to be wanting to be drinking and watching the NASCAR races?
Let me clarify real quick, first of all, on my statements. I never said exclusively, hey, we should talk about these. I said that tennis is not that popular, and then if we're going to talk about tennis, we need to at least cover these other more popular stories. So
we did.
Yeah, but you guys are making it sound like I was like begging, like we need to cover NASCAR and whatever.
We just told you that because you said.
I know, I understand. Anyway, the story. We'll get to it. I actually have some decent input to this. Okay, I think it it was a really good move by them. I think you're going to a lot of people want to be entertained. I think, heck, I mean, they're going to go, they're going to want to gamble, drink, just have a good time in general. I mean, it's auto racing. It's not like they're going to be glued to their seat watching the race, focused. I think they could take a little break, couple laps go around, play some slots. I mean, it's a good move economically.
This is for those who are not the diehards like Billy, who will sit there and watch the game, fall asleep for 15 minutes. It's considered a game to them. Fall asleep.
The race,
it's considered a game.
Nobody calls it a game.
Just go with it.
Falls asleep. I was going to say, have any of you ever been to a NASCAR race?
He goes,
Nope.
here's what you do.
It is awesome.
He's going to go there.
Sure.
He's one of the diehards who'll sit there, watch the whole thing, drink beer, fall asleep for 15 minutes, wake up, find it again, watch it some more. This is set up for more of those who are the sponsors, who are guys who don't necessarily watch. Are going to go in, watch the game, watch the race a little bit, gamble a little bit, drink, enjoy themselves, get something to eat, watch the race a little bit more, and go back and forth. This is not for guys like Billy, who will sit there in the sweltering heat and watch the race and cheer for whoever their favorite person is.
Yeah, see, I would agree to that with an extent. I mean, I will confess, I do a little bit of a stereotype when it comes to NASCAR fans for the most part. I mean, I know Billy likes NASCAR, but...
Billy fits the stereotype of NASCAR, just to let you know.
Kind of, sort of.
I correct you, sir. I am not a redneck.
I mean,
you're close.
I mean, you look at the people who want to go and, who would go to a racetrack and gamble, but there's actually a lot of people that would, and that's what I'm saying. Vince is over here raising his hand, and I mean, it's a definite possibility, because I think it's a good move, but I think it's just kind of an interesting thing for Kansas Motor Speedway, because you're going to bring in those type of people even more, to gamble, and I think you're right, it could be more for the sponsors or that kind of thing, but I mean, it's just...
Who owns Kansas Motor Speedway as well?
I don't even know.
I believe Churchill Downs might have acquired them.
Which would make perfect sense since they owned it. But here's the other thing, too. I mean, if you just look at the sheer demographic, and I don't want to play into stereotypes here, but I think if you look at the overwhelming demographic of people who watch NASCAR, they're more rural and they're probably not as affluent as people who would be...
Southern.
Right. Well, I'm not going to say Southern. I'm going to say, let's just say less affluent.
Where the demographic comes from is mostly Southern.
Well, mostly Southern,
area.
but perhaps lower socioeconomic status, so they're more likely to gamble. So I think it made a good move.
Yeah, that's true.
Just have to see how things actually do play out in the first season.
We'll take Billy there and
we'll
see what happens.
We'll watch the first NASCAR game, how it goes.
Yeah,
Hey,
I agree with you.
Hey, don't you mess with Daytona.
I was making fun of
February
Vince for
20
saying
February
NASCAR
26th.
game.
Daytona, in fact, is the biggest race of the year, right?
February
Yeah.
26th.
Should be a great
Just
game.
a couple weeks
Correct.
away. Moving on back to the NBA, the Magic owner says that he does not want to trade Dwight Howard. Who can blame him for saying that? I mean, other than the fact you might have a disgruntled player, he's the best player on your team, so why want to trade him?
Well, right now the Magic aren't exactly the powerhouse they have been, making it to the playoffs, a higher seed lately. And Dwight Howard being disgruntled, Dwight Howard is your team right now. Jameer Nelson's been on and off with injury. Hedo Turkoglu's going to retire within the next 3 to 4 years.
Thank goodness.
And, I mean, yeah, exactly. The bane of Cleveland. But I think Dwight Howard, if they were to trade him, it would be a good move. Look at what the Nuggets did. Carmelo was disgruntled, and he didn't want to stay. Traded him to the Knicks, thought it was a good move. Grabbed a lot of players. They're now the 3 seed in the West. If the Magic were to do something like this to a Los Angeles Laker team, to a New Jersey Net team, they could get a lot of young players, and they could probably rebuild or even potentially contend this year.
The problem is Howard keeps switching back and forth. Oh, I want to play for this team. I want to play for this team.
And that's when you're the owner. You step in and say you're going to this team.
The owner is one of those guys who he's one of those guys. He wants to keep his franchise players with him. He likes Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard's a good guy. They've gotten along. Kind of the same. It's a situation it will bring up is when you talk about Joe Montana and Eddie DeBartolo. Joe Montana and Eddie DeBartolo were really good friends and really close. And when Steve Young came in, and when Montana got hurt and went out, they realized, well, this is the next guy. We have to move Montana. DeBartolo couldn't do it. He wanted the day before they were going for the trade. He gave him the starting. He goes, "You got the starting spot again." He had to fly to Youngstown to talk to him about it. He couldn't do it. They had to have the GM come and say, "We've already worked out a trade. We have to move on." So this might be more of a personal connection thing going on here, which is totally understandable. And this still keeps the value of his team up as well. If Dwight Howard's there, if you're going to trade for a few other people, sorry, Andrew Bynum is not somebody who's going to be drawing people in. Dwight Howard is the main meal ticket right there. You ride that meal ticket as long as you can and try to keep him if you can.
Well, Vince, like you said, any owner that has that player that they know is their franchise. I mean, he has symbolized the Magic. He's been there. He was like, I don't want to say it, but he was like LeBron in Cleveland, or any player, like Dwayne Wade or Shaq.
Shaq in Orlando before.
Right, and I was going to say, or like the Miami Heat with Dwayne Wade. I mean, he is your player, and any owner is going to be hesitant. I mean, it's difficult to make that big of a change to your organization. Even if you know that you could probably be better, it's still a risk, and it's really difficult to shake things up. So I don't think you can blame him at all for not wanting to trade a disgruntled Dwight Howard.
I mean, the Nuggets, they they got lucky with that trade last year with Melo. I mean, Gallinari, Felton, they just got stacked with that trade. They got so many players that were able to add productivity to the team and not really lose much productivity. Darn, I missed it. And nonetheless, moving on back to the NFL, Roger Goodell talking about getting rid of the Pro Bowl if they cannot come up with a good reason to keep it and to make it more important.
Or you mean more competitive? How about that?
No, more important.
It was a terrible game.
Yeah.
59 to 40-something? Just awful. We're watching the highlights, and the defensive linemen are like, it looks like somebody who, they start off really fast, but they're just kind of moving their legs and make it look like they're running. They're essentially just walking and sticking their hands going, oh, hey, I'm going to get it. No. It was terrible. Just absolutely awful. And the Pro Bowl is one of those things you look at. It's not the most viewed. It's not really liked by the fans if you think about it. Most of the fans really, considering out of the three major sports, it's the one that's cared about the least. So I really wouldn't have a big deal of him getting rid of it and saying he's a Pro Bowler. Here, you get an extra bonus for being a Pro Bowler. There you go. Congratulations. I think most players themselves would be like, cool, thanks. The other thing is all the other All-Star games or Pro whatever they are, those are in the middle of each season. There's a break. There's no break with this. This doesn't create any sort of break, so there's no incentive for these players. So,
well, the problem with that, too, is that football, it's so hard to recover quickly.
Yeah,
you can only play one game a week for a very good reason.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, unlike those other two, unlike the other All-Star games, there's no real breaks. So there's no incentive for these guys. So I really think they should just get rid of them, pay them the extra bonus money they get for being a Pro Bowler, and move on.
See, I think what they should do, rather than have the Pro Bowl game, I think they should really hype up, because I know they've done this kind of in the past, like a skills competition. Like, they have aspects of that sometimes, but I think they should really hype that up and, say you're going to the Pro Bowl, but don't have a game anymore because it's boring. And number one, make it after the Super Bowl, because people will actually care after the Super Bowl.
No one cared when it was after the Super Bowl.
Well, yeah, but I think, okay, the week before it's like, cool, the Pro Bowl, but I feel like right now, like, at least I get to see some sort of football, you know what I mean? Because it's all, but I think if you hype up some sort of a skills competition, like, I'd like to see how far quarterbacks can throw and, like, cool kicks and, like, something like they do in hockey. I mean, they make a big deal about the skills competition, and I used to really, like, enjoy watching that, but the game, there's no way to really incentivize it to make it competitive. Guys don't want to get hurt. Guys don't want to put in their full effort, so I think it's a good move to get rid of it, but I think you should replace it with something for the fans.
I mean, the only thing I can think of is both, the MLB All-Star Game rings true to me because it's home field advantage for the World Series, and that becomes a major factor. But with the NFL, they play the games in neutral sites, which poses a problem. But I feel like if they were to do it in the middle of the season with like a week-long break, it gives the players who aren't in the Pro Bowl the needed rest that they have, and then the players that are in the Pro Bowl have something to play for. Granted, you risk injury potentially, but, if they have something to play for, fans would have something to watch because, the players would care, so the fans would care just as much. And, the whole tweeting on the sideline thing, that's not going to help. The fans have something to read, but it doesn't help the game.
I just don't see them caring either way. With baseball, that recently has happened. That's the whole All-Star game being important has just recently happened.
And their fan base has grown for the game.
Yeah, but there's also been called disdain to get rid of that as well, just to make it a regular All-Star game. So there's always pros and cons on both sides. I say just get rid of the Pro Bowl, personally.
I wouldn't be opposed to just dropping the Pro Bowl altogether. I don't watch it anyway. I used to watch it because it was a game, but now it's just, I completely
I'm a defensive lineman sticking my hands up to block the ball.
Yeah, pretty much. Nonetheless, though, on to golf. My favorite sport. As you may or may not know. Nope, it's golf.
No,
it's
I said next to NASCAR. It's number 2.
Nope, golf is number 1. Okay, there you go. Tiger Woods teed off today with Tony Romo at the Pro-Am at Pebble Beach. And after the first round, he is 5 shots off the lead, with the leaders being Dustin Johnson, Danny Lee, and Charlie Wee. The only one that we actually know is Dustin Johnson, who's had his share of chokes in the big-time tournaments. The question, can Tiger Woods finally break through and get an official PGA Tour win for the first time in a number of years?
No, probably not. He's playing well. I guess there's an outside chance, but I just don't. I don't know. I guess, you know what? I'm going to reverse direction. I'm going to say, yes, he can win. That was a weird mid-sentence reversal. I was thinking about how good he played at the, I think it's the Dubai Classic or the other one. Like
he played pretty well.
He almost won that. Yeah, he got third. And that's how he's been through some of these smaller tournaments. But I think that, I don't know if we'll ever get the Tiger that we used to have back in it, but I think that he definitely should always be considered as able to win. I don't think you should ever say, oh, he's never going to win it because he's,
Yeah, you never count Tiger Woods out, but I mean, I think if he's going to win anywhere, he's going to win at a place he's comfortable with, like a Pebble Beach. He's won at least 9 tournaments at Pebble Beach. That is basically his home course because he went to Stanford. It's his hometown. He loves that course. I mean, I don't know if this week's the week that he will win it, but I think we'll see Tiger back to form. He's healthy. The scandals a couple years gone by. He's ready to play golf, and I mean, he showed it at the Dubai Classic. Like Steve, like you said, like smaller tournaments, he's starting to get back in the groove of things. And I think by the time Augusta rolls around, which is the Masters, for those of you who don't really know golf, in April, I think he has a shot of winning a tournament before then because he is in pretty good form right now.
The thing here, too, is you're looking at is Tiger had totally redone his swing again. This is like the 3rd or 4th time he's redone his swing. He's gotten used with his coach now, with what his coach wants him to do. And we've always seen where when he's retweaking himself or doing something different, he has a little bit of a lull. And that combined with getting hurt and everything that happened in the past, now he's got that swing master down. He's got his putts working. I think he can win it. You always have to, even Tiger like this right now, unless we definitely know he's fallen flat off the face of the planet, he's always the favorite. It does not matter how bad he's played the last 2-3 years, unless he's done atrocious. He's the favorite. So I think he's going to win. I think he's back on track. He's always been that lurking first day, second day, tied or in the lead.
Hey,
One of those guys.
The best pairing of all at this Pro-Am this week, J.J. Henry is paired with Chris Berman. That would be awesome to be able to go out there and play with Chris Berman.
I was just
5 Undivided.
Yeah, that first story is about your golfing days, Vince. Is about the one time that you've been
one
out.
time I golfed. It was terrible.
Moving on, our final 5 undivided topic of the night. We're talking about the Forbes most disliked list. As we got the top 10 right here in front of us. Number 1, Michael Vick, is tied with Tiger Woods.
Billy, why would you not start with 10 and work your way down to 1?
Because we don't want to do
Come on now.
Steve, when you run the show next year, you can do it.
That's how you do top 10 lists. You start at 10, you build up the excitement, and then everybody's wondering what's number 1.
Well, you know what, Steve?
Steve?
Away. You threw off the whole wave of the show.
You should restart at number 10 and go back down to number 2, so we at least have some excitement.
You just be quiet. After Tiger Woods and Michael Vick, it's Plaxico Burress at 56%, and Dominican Sue at number 4. Chris Humphries is the 5th most hated man in sports. LeBron James at 6, Kobe Bryant at 7, Terrell Owens, A-Rod, and Kurt Busch are the top 10. And really, there's no surprises on this list as to how they are ranked as being most hated.
There's a little bit of surprises, I feel. You said Tiger Woods and Michael Vick were number 1. Was Bryant even in the top 10? Did you say Bryant?
Yeah,
What number?
LeBron's at number 7. I mean, Kobe's at 7.
Now that's surprising. If you take 5 years ago, you would have thought Bryant would have been up there. He's up there. He would have been one of those guys. The other ones that are really surprising: James Harrison and Hines Ward, 2 Steelers who were voted most disliked player in the NFL, are not in that top 10 list.
I was surprised. As a Steelers fan,
too.
I was surprised. And Ben Roethlisberger wasn't on that list.
Oh yeah, that's a little surprising too
Or
because of all the jokes.
Another suggestion: Tim Tebow not on the list.
Tim Tebow is more liked than hated.
But he's so polarized. There has to be a lot of people who hate him.
He is polarizing, but he does not crack this top 10 list because he's more liked than anything else. But I really think that's a little surprising. Those 2 were not on there. Roethlisberger not on there, and Kobe being as low as he is, it really goes to show you that a reality show can really affect things. Chris Humphries, I can't believe that, the whole sham and everything.
Why? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to put a little blip in about Chris Humphries. I mean, I just think he's kind of disliked for the fact that he was married to Kim Kardashian for a little bit, and a lot of
broke up with her. That's why they're upset. A lot of women dislike him because of that.
But I'm talking about a lot of men dislike him for the fact that he just had a chance with Kim Kardashian. I mean, that's...
I respect him for it. I say, hey,
sides.
if she's good looking. If she doesn't work,
I mean,
whatever.
That's why a lot of people disliked Reggie Bush for a while, I think, too.
Okay, but here's what I want to know. Why is Plaxico Burress so high on this list?
Because he is one of those guys who, when he was with the Giants, he was always saying something. He was never
I guess he
even
was.
in Pittsburgh. He gave you guys problems.
He did. I just feel like he isn't.
Shot himself in the leg.
Yeah.
Did you see how many people were so happy when he went to jail?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that was surprising. So many people happy to see someone in jail for shooting himself. Wow.
Again, wearing sweatpants and having a gun.
I guess
Never mind.
he's just dumb, but I didn't really hate. I never viewed him as being one of those hated. And I was really surprised that Michael Vick was number 1 on this list.
I'm not, because for the simple fact that as much as he's tried to do repenting, the pet owners of the world, the big groups, PETA, will not let him down. They will not let him
You know,
go.
he did his time. He said that he was wrong. I'm not saying it makes it any better, but I'm just surprised there's still so much hatred.
When it comes to animals, people love their animals more than people sometimes.
Yeah,
that's worse.
You know, one thing about this is it says right here is Sue, who actually 4 months ago led a Forbes poll of the most liked players in the NFL with an appeal score of 71%. His unliked percentage is at 51%. And a lot of that is because of what he did on Thanksgiving Day when he stomped Evan Dietrich Smith of the Green Bay Packers. So since then, his popularity has just stumbled tremendously.
Like
yeah, I don't at all. He totally tanked with that.
Yeah, I kind of agree to an extent. But, I mean, if you look at the athletes on this list, you know, Michael Vick, Tiger Woods, Plaxico Burress, Ndamukong Suh, Kobe Bryant, Alex Rodriguez, you know, 7 of the 10 players have had scandals or crimes involved with them. And I mean, I think as a general public, people look out for that. I mean, Kurt Busch, kind of, I guess. I mean,
why is Kurt Busch hated? I didn't know that.
Because he races dirty.
And he likes to brawl in pit road, I guess.
He instead of just driving like aggressive and trying to it takes people, he like aims to take people.
Well,
out.
I did see when I looked up this story, the picture they used of Kurt Busch was him in his race car with a beer, and I was like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah,
that isn't setting a good example for your fans, Kurt.
I mean, you look at this though. I mean, it's just the general public. These people have committed crimes or they've just had scandals. Like, you know, Tiger Woods, he was one of the most notable players in sports next to LeBron for a while, a couple of years, and then he dropped off because of his scandals. Same with, you know, the steroid scandals and every other crime or scandal these athletes have committed.
On the list, though, the one surprise is Ndamukong Suh being all the way up there. The rest of them, really not as surprising.
You got to think part of that, though, is got to be the media coverage that he got with that. I think part of that is why.
Well, I think part of it was his own reaction. He was like, "Oh, I didn't know," or like he was making all these excuses, and it was like, "Come on, man, come clean." And I think that had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, same with T.O. I mean, he's been on sports for a while. It's just the media coverage and his natural.
Because he's in the indoor football league. That's why. He's not even on.
That's true.
That's another story for another day. But nonetheless, moving on back to the Super Bowl, as the thing that I think everyone watches the Super Bowl for is the commercials.
Disappointing.
That's how you get your girlfriend to watch Super Bowl.
Yes, I will admit a number of the commercials were disappointing, but what were your guys' favorite commercials of the Super Bowl?
All right, I have 2.
Actually, let's start with Steve
we'll
since he complains.
No, go ahead. You can start first.
No,
Steve,
you're
starting.
I want to save mine up.
Okay. Well, I was trying to think of what my favorite one was. I had it written down on a piece of paper before, but I don't have that with me anymore. Somewhere, I kind of like that. All right, I thought this was a really overrated one. I guess one of the number 1 rated was the Doritos baby commercial.
The Doritos dog commercial is the number 1 rated one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that was okay, but the Doritos baby one was pretty popular. It wasn't really that impressed.
Was funny.
There were some kind of weird ones. I did like the Seinfeld one where they had the.
That one was good.
Well, but I like that just because of the car. The car looks awesome.
It
was more exciting to me.
Best part about
most
that commercial though was definitely when Jay Leno comes in at the end of that one, and then he's flying off with the car, and Seinfeld just turns to the camera. Leno.
Well, at the end they have like the leprechaun. He's like Leno.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I kind of have 2 as well. You know, I think the Bud Light commercial with the rescue dog was definitely up there because I mean, watching the football game with a bunch of guys in a fraternity and seeing a rescue dog getting beer, I mean, that is just so interesting.
And it had a good message too of help save rescue
animals. At the very end, you know, it was both positive and funny, and I like that. And then I honestly can't remember what company this is for, which is kind of a bad thing for the company, but the commercial with the very, very fat dog who looked at himself in the mirror.
That was the new BMW.
It's Volkswagen.
The Volkswagen. Right?
I remembered my favorite.
Yeah.
Go ahead, continue.
As Steve has an epiphany over here, but I like the fact that dog. I mean, it was really hilarious. But I mean, everyone kind of sees themselves in that too. You know, you want to better yourself, and I think it was a great job by Volkswagen to like have a funny take on it, but also have people relate to it as well.
It was BMW, I believe, not Volkswagen.
Yeah, it was
right?
It was Volkswagen.
It was Volkswagen.
It was
Volkswagen.
Yeah,
okay.
the new look Beetle.
Oh yeah,
that's what I meant.
the
Sorry,
dog.
I didn't mean BMW.
That song annoyed me in that commercial for some reason. Anyway, my favorite commercial, now that I remember, was the Clint Eastwood Halftime America.
That was actually not counted in the Super Bowl commercial because it considered it a halftime commercial, not during the Super Bowl. But that was a good one.
Well,
I do like
it was on during the game, so I'm going to consider it a commercial
I'll
either way. But it was cool because Clint Eastwood comes out and it's Halftime America, and we have things to do, and people have been hardship and everything. America, we're going to get back on our feet. It's our halftime now, America.
Let's hear Vince's, which I know exactly which one his is. It's the same one as me.
My favorite was...
real quick, I just thought it was almost as good as the Importer from Detroit commercial last year.
It is. It's the same one. Basically, it's the same guy. It's just they use him instead of Eminem. So, my same commercial concept. So my 2 favorite. First one was the Sierra commercial where the apocalypse happened and the guy said he didn't drive a Ford. He didn't drive the longest last truck. He drove a Ford and he won a Twinkie. That one was funny to me. Ford tried to get that removed, by the way. Secondly, was the M&M commercial where the red M&M took off his candy coat and danced "I'm sexy and I know" and did the wiggle part at the end. That was hilarious.
Oh, that was so cheesy.
But you got the message. It was brown chocolate M&M, and you understood that.
It was cheesy, but it was funny.
It was an old school commercial, and I loved it.
Last one. The E-Trade commercial needs a little bit of notice.
Speed dating.
Having a baby go into a nursery and say, "I'm speed dating," that was just brilliant.
I feel like the E-Trade has overplayed the baby thing.
We'll see what happens.
It has, but it was still pretty
you know
funny.
what? We need to move on because it is now.
It's hockey time.
As really, I couldn't find many things that were going on good in hockey this week. So
You could have talked about how I was interviewing with the Red Wings during hockey time.
well, you know
could've
what?
been something.
we
Can that be
could've-
the new hockey time? I want to hear about that.
But nonetheless, though, the Phoenix Coyotes, who are having an atrocious season, end their 7-game skid with a win over Vince's the beloved Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah, it was. The Red Wings are a very good team actually this year. But anyways, the Coyotes, one of those teams that they've been on the up and down, and good job, 7-game. Anytime you can end a losing streak against a very good team, it's good for you.
Yeah, I'm usually not so interested in the streaks in hockey unless it's an insurmountable far because that's the way the sport is. It's such a long season, so many things change that teams will go on streaks and losses, but that just sort of that's a regular season. You're going to have win and loss streaks. So I'm not super interested in this story, but I think it was appropriate to pick for hockey time, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. It was kind of a slow week on the ice, but one thing about this win for the Coyotes, they are pretty bad this year, and the Red Wings have an 18-game home winning streak right now. I mean, they're a very, very impressive hockey team, and I think that's a big win for Phoenix. Not really as a season, but as a franchise, showing that they can still beat the elite teams in the NHL.
Yeah, the mention is that we are going. Billy and I and a bunch of others are traveling up to the Mount Union Sports Sales Workshop. This is the 6th year in a row that they're having it, and we basically get sales training by professionals. And we get food. We get to hang out.
So wait, did you interview with the Red Wings?
I'm going to. I will be tomorrow.
Yeah.
I will be one of the teams I will be interviewing with will be the Detroit Red Wings, and there's a bunch. You get 15-minute interviews with. You get 15-minute interviews with teams. You have to email them your resume, and they set up times with you during that. You get the training, and then you get to do that. So if there's any sport business majors listening, go next year and get yourself set up because you can do internships. You can get set up for internships. You can get set up for actual possible jobs, anything like that, and it's a great way to get contacts.
Neat.
It is a good experience.
It's awesome.
Vince has gone every year. I went last year, and you definitely learn a lot while you're there.
And the guys remember if you return every year.
Yeah, they do remember you. I emailed a couple guys, and they actually did remember me from last year. But moving on, it is time for the last segment of the night. Time for our picks. Number 12, Michigan State at number 3, Ohio State this weekend.
It's at home, Ohio State.
Yep, in the shot, Buckeyes playing well, Sully down low.
As much as I respect the Michigan State program, which is kind of hard to say from an Ohio State fan, but go
Agreed.
Bucks. They're going to beat them.
Agreed.
How can you not respect Michigan State and Tom Izzo?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I
Michigan
mean.
that
I
you
just,
don't want
I'm
to.
saying I
the
respect
state,
them, but
yeah,
it's just, it's Michigan.
It's not the state
It's
up
got
north,
that.
it's the team up
It's
north.
got
they
that.
don't-
It's got that word in it that you don't like using.
Yeah.
I have an uncle that graduated from Michigan State, but Ohio State all the way.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry about that, too. Is he okay?
Yeah, he's fine.
Oh, that's good.
Number 6, Baylor at number 4, Missouri.
Interesting matchup. I think Baylor wins this game. Perry gets really angry after his 5-point game. I think Baylor wins.
I have Mizzou at home. I mean, I love this Baylor basketball team. A lot of NBA potential, and they're a very solid team. But they've been on a kind of a downslip lately. So I'm going to go with Mizzou's guard play at home.
Yeah, I don't really know about this matchup very well, so I think I'm going to go with Ryan because he sounded like he actually knew what was going on. Whose guard play at home is going to win.
Gee,
Sorry,
thanks.
Vince. Sorry.
I'll take Baylor. I think that with AC and Perry Jones III, Baylor is just they're
I was
on
going to say
I think
Perry
they're
the
on a-
third, and I was like, no, that's his first name, so I just went with Perry because
Chase Budinger.
Chase Budinger.
That is a funny story from a long time ago. We're not even going to talk about it. Number 20, Virginia at number 5, UNC. North Carolina looking to rebound after a heartbreaking loss to Duke.
Yeah, they're going to rebound. They're going to crush Virginia.
Yeah, Virginia's a ranked team. One of the big surprises of the ACC. But Carolina at Chapel Hill, coming off a loss, they don't lose 2 games in a row.
Yeah, they're going to learn their lesson for sure. That's what I think. I think they're going to come back with even more fire, and they're not going to make the same mistakes they did against their rival.
Yeah, I'm sure Tyler Zeller isn't going to tip ball into his own basket.
He still had a double-double. You can't really blame the game on him.
Yeah, but still. It was at that point that you knew the DM was turning
Let's just
completely.
blame it on Harrison Barnes since he's the person that everybody knows, just like everybody blames LeBron when they can't get the right milk.
You know, there's a funny article I read today about LeBron and all that, which sounds like Vince read it too, which we'll talk about that another time. NBA picks Lakers at the Celtics.
This is an interesting matchup because both teams kind of stink right now. But I'm going to pick the Celtics because I think the Lakers just have too much going on with them right now to really get focused, and they really have to rely on Kobe shooting lights out, and even that isn't enough to propel them. I'm going to go with the Celtics.
I'm going to go with the Lakers on this one. You know, I'm not a big Lakers fan, but the Celtics are getting worn down. You know, this 66-game schedule with the 3 games a week crammed in is really putting a hurting on their older roster. You know, fatigue is becoming a factor. Granted, the Lakers are no spring chickens either, but I have a feeling they're playing a little bit better basketball, and Kobe's going to have a good night. So I'm going to go with the Lakers.
And they do have a little bit more youth than the Celtics do.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, I think that, for both these teams, it's hard to adjust. I think, for Kobe, he's not old, but he started playing when he was 18, so maybe his joints aren't quite as good as somebody would have started when they were older. But I think that the Celtics are a little bit too old, and they're getting a little bit worn down from this hectic season. So I'm going to say the Lakers are going to win.
Can I say something before we move on to our next pick real quick?
Can I make my pick first?
Yeah, you make your pick, and then I want to make my point here.
Lakers.
Okay, so speaking of the Lakers, is it just me from being a Cavs fan, or is it really bizarre to see Mike Brown on the sideline as coaching the Lakers? I just find that really weird. I think maybe it's because I didn't think he would ever fit into that group, because you think of the iconic coaches. You really don't think of Mike Brown as an iconic coach. You think he's a good defensive guy, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? That just kind of, it's disorienting for me to see Mike Brown.
Let's think about this for a second. Coached under Greg Popovich in San Antonio, led the Cavs to the best record in the NBA 2 straight seasons, had the league MVP 2 straight years. He's on his way to iconic status.
Had no control over LeBron.
Yeah, but nonetheless, now he's got a Kobe Bryant. You know, I mean, it's equally now he has a veteran who he has not less control.
Yeah, but
over.
He's a veteran. He'll be able to know, and they can work themselves together. So.
I still think he's a good coach. I mean, you can't
I think he's
discredit
good. It just throws me off that he's there. You know.
See, I think Mike Brown's a great coach. What happened in Cleveland at the end of there? I don't think you blame him. You watch it. LeBron just basically quit on the stage. He knew he was leaving after that.
What's Steve's opinion? I haven't heard Steve's opinion. I'm interested to hear this. You don't really care?
No, I don't really care.
Okay.
I follow basketball, but I don't have a specific opinion about how I feel about Mike Brown being on the sideline for the Lakers.
It's just kind of.
I follow the NBA, but I'm not that into it that I really care.
All right. Thanks for your opinion. At least it was honest. Moving on, last pick of the night before Oddsmaker.
That was a very condescending tone, Billy.
Miami at Indiana.
When is Billy not condescending?
Both teams tearing it up this year. Indiana leading the Central and Miami leading the Southeast.
Good matchup because both teams have high motors. Miami gives up a ton of 3-pointers, most in the league this year, and I don't know if Indiana has those 3-point shooters though to complement them. They got a lot of bangers and a lot of guys who don't quit. That being said, I think Miami wins this one.
I just for a record on this show, I will most likely never pick the Heat. Just so you know, and I mean, it makes this easier that the Pacers are at home, and they do have a 3-point shooter like Danny Granger, who probably the most underrated player in the NBA, in my opinion, because he's a perennial All-Star every year, and he leads that team. You know, I think the Indiana Pacers grab this one at home.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to side more with Vince. I think that Miami, generally, when I'm picking teams, I would pick Miami. I think they're still one of the better teams in the league, so I'm gonna have to give it to them. As much as I hate to say it.
Yeah.
I'll take the Pacers also with Ryan, just for the fact that, like you said, they're at home. And Indiana, they've been hot this year, and they've knocked off the Bulls twice already. And the Bulls won the
pretty good basketball team.
For the record, we should seriously start keeping track of our picks so that we have some sort of
fodder at the end.
I want a lead dog trophy if I get that.
Why don't we start tonight, Billy? Why don't you mark it out? We can talk about it next show.
Yeah, we'll start next week.
I liked our 30 seconds of airtime last year.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool.
Oh yeah.
I decided to be rid of that this year.
The last
I like
word.
it. We should do it.
Oddsmaker, what are the odds that 3 big name players are moved by the trade deadline?
I'm going to go at 40%. I think this year, particularly with how everything has shook out in the things, the only one who's really New Orleans is the only team that's going to be screwed over at any point, but because they're owned by the team, there's too much moving around issues. But I still think 40%. I think the league in itself is too cautious right now, particularly after what happened with the Chris Paul trade, that they want to do that. So I'm going to go 40%.
I would say about 0.5% on this one, actually, because I I think if anybody's going to move, it's Dwight Howard. As for 3 big-name guys, there are a lot of teams that are happy with the way they are, and they don't feel like they need to move, and there aren't a lot of teams that are in that rebuilding process right now.
If you move Howard, though, you have the possibility of moving 2 other big names, Bynum and Gasol, so you could
I'm just saying, I think it's about 0.5% because I really don't think Dwight Howard's going to go anywhere, and for 2 others, it's going to be difficult.
I think I'm going to split the difference, say 30%. I think 3 is still sort of I agree with you that if they do move Howard, there is a possibility for 2 other big names, but I still think that it's less likely that they would actually go through and have 3 moves. So I'm going to say, about 25% or so. Well, yeah.
I'd say about 15-20%. It's highly unlikely. If this was last year, I think with the longer season, it would have been more likely. We saw Mike Bibby traded, Darren Williams traded within a couple years ago. So you see a lot of big-time moves, but I don't think it's going to happen this year.
I think you could also make the argument that since it is such a weird transition season, that maybe teams would be more likely to shake things up because it's such a strange season.
Yeah, it'll play out.
We'll see. Just have to wait and see. Trade deadline coming up in a couple weeks. Bonus pick time. Regular season ACC champ. Is it Duke, North Carolina, or do they share?
It's going to be Duke. Even though they've had some struggles at home this year, I don't see North Carolina winning at Duke. And I think Duke pulls out, wins the ACC regular championship.
I agree. I think if Duke is able to win at North Carolina, that they will be able to win at home too. So I'm going to have to go with Duke.
Wild card pick. I'm going to go with Florida State, actually, because Florida State was up atop the ACC yesterday until they lost to Boston College. I think Duke and Carolina both have one more conference loss, and Florida State owns the tiebreaker. I have the Seminoles winning the ACC.
You're crazy.
You realize Duke and North Carolina only have 2 losses apiece, right, in the ACC?
Yeah, Florida State has 2 now, too.
Do they?
Yeah, Florida State was 7-1. They were atop, and then they lost to Boston College yesterday, making them one game behind. So one more loss by Carolina and Duke. Florida State owns the tiebreaker by beating both of them.
Right, we'll see if Ryan ends up being
lose
That's a bold pick.
I like it.
I think it's going to be in Duke. Austin Rivers, Seth Curry, the Plumlees. There's 500 of them there on the roster right now. So, but, who knows what's going to happen for the rest of the season. As that'll do things for us here tonight on Raiders Zone Weekly. We thank you for joining us, and we hope that you join us next week. Be sure to tune in on Saturday as Steve and Vince will have coverage of the men's basketball game here as they will take on the Ohio Northern Polar Bears. Tip-off set for 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But until then, keep listening to the radio voice of Mount Union, WRMU 91.1.